Welcome to Moonbeam Jellyfish, where artistry creates magic. Hi, Moonbeams. This art piece is called Heart of the Clover, and it pushed me outside of my comfort zone in the best way. I usually love layering and texture, dots, splatter, extra marks, but this time I wanted to practice restraint, softer layers, fewer details, more intention, which was much tougher than I expected. In this video, I'm bringing you along as I build this mixed media shamrock from the ground up. I'll share the materials I'm using, what worked, what didn't, and the small decisions that shaped the final piece. And there's one little pop of color in this painting that wasn't my idea, but I am so glad I listened. Let's dive right in. I'm using a sturdy foam brush and applying a generous layer of matte medium to both the canvas and the paper for a strong hold. Today I decided to wear gloves. Mixed media can get messy, and this makes cleanup a little easier. I left a slight overhang around the edge so I can wrap the paper around the canvas and create a clean finished border. To help it curve smoothly, I cut small notches into the excess paper. This allows it to bend without buckling as I work my way around the canvas. I apply more matte medium underneath, press firmly, and seal the top as I go to make sure everything adheres properly, especially along the edges. Let this dry completely before moving on. You can always speed things up with a heat tool if you would like. Once dry, I add a thin layer of matte medium to the front using circular brush strokes. I actually love the subtle texture this creates. It adds dimension and works beautifully under acrylic paint and markers. Not every supply loved this surface, but I found simple solutions, and in the end, I like the results even more. Now let's transfer the design. I find that transfer paper is one of the easiest ways to get clean, crisp lines on a sealed surface like this. A regular pencil just doesn't show up as clearly. I place my image where I want it, slide the transfer paper underneath, and use a bit of pressure with a dotting tool to trace the lines. If you'd like to follow along exactly, I do have a traceable available over on Patreon, along with a bonus rendering of the finished concept design. Before lifting the image, I always double check to make sure everything transferred properly. I'm using the color palm leaf to paint the shamrock itself, and I'm intentionally leaving the background untouched. The soft peach tone of the paper already gives me the warmth I was looking for, which is why I chose it in the first place. I start with a small flat brush, carefully working along the outline, then switch to a larger brush to fill in the broader areas, and a small round brush helps me get into the stem. Anchoring your hand with your pinky can really help steady your lines and keep the edges smooth. Take your time here, there's no rush. After the first layer dries, off camera, I add a second coat for richer coverage. Once the shamrock is dry, I use a white charcoal pencil to sketch in the swirly details. I like charcoal here because it wipes away cleanly. If I need to adjust anything, graphite is tough to erase and tends to smear on this surface and just doesn't show up as well, and this just keeps the process nice and tidy. Next, I'm using an ivory Posca marker to add the dotted details. Remember, try not to press too hard with acrylic markers. Too much pressure can flood the tip with paint. I take my time here to keep the dots more uniform. If you don't have a marker, a dotting tool with acrylic paint works beautifully as well. I devised a little system for placing the hearts using alcohol ink and a rubber stamp. Then I added stars to the background with a stencil and traced a few smaller shamrocks using transfer paper instead of freehanding them. It just keeps everything clean and consistent. I'm using a permanent green olive pit pen to trace some of the smaller elements and add a few subtle background dots. I wanted definition, but not harsh contrast. In order to cover up the mess on the back of the board, I traced a circle slightly smaller than the canvas, and I used a pizza box. I love repurposing materials whenever I can. I glued it down with Julep embellishing glue, but honestly, any strong adhesive would work. This is just what I had on hand. Originally, I colored the hearts with a soft peach to keep with the muted color palette, but my son suggested trying a vibrant orange instead, and I'm so glad I listened. That small shift added exactly the contrast the painting needed. After sitting with the piece for a few minutes, I felt like the bottom right corner needed something more. I used rubber letter stamps and distress ink to add the word lucky. Lesson learned, distress ink does not love being sealed over matte medium. It smeared slightly when I added the Mod Podge layer. But honestly, it turned into a bit of a happy accident. It gave the lettering a subtle glow. Before sealing everything, I added a little extra shimmer to the hearts and refined a few details. And this is where I really had to practice restraint. I thought about adding splatter, more dots, more texture, but I held back. And I'm really proud of that. Sometimes letting a painting breathe is the stronger choice. I applied Mod Podge in a circular motion using a sponge brush and dried it with a hairdryer in a sweeping motion. At the very end, I debated outlining the clover in black like I often do. Instead, I chose that same olive green Pitt pen for the outline and to create a border around the edge of the painting. It gave me definition without overpowering the softness of the piece. Quick bonus tip: if you're using Pitt pens over Mod Podge and make a mistake, a damp wipe can remove it before it fully sets. It saved me more than once, including with this painting. And that's it. Here's the finished heart of the clover. I learned a few things about certain materials and a few things about myself. Thank you for creating with me today. Until next time, stay luminous and keep creating magic.